Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. So today is the day that we take out the Nucanoe's newest fishing kayak, the U10 or the Unlimited 10. It's a 10-foot, 10-inch version of its predecessor, the Unlimited, the 12.5-foot kayak. So I'm going to go over on the water, how does it paddle? How does it turn? How is the tracking and speed on this kayak? How stable is it? And I'm also going to go over who, in my opinion, this kayak is meant for. Stay tuned to the end of the video. I'll go over my pros and cons as usual. I'll talk about things that I really like about this kayak and things may not be a deal breaker on the cons, but things that you should consider when looking at the U10 versus a lot of other kayaks out there. Thanks for coming by, guys. Let's get right into it. Okay guys, so just going to talk about my experience with the kayak, and also I'll throw in obviously a lot of footage of me out on the water with this kayak. So with the U10 or the Unlimited 10, the thing that really I liked the most about it was throw and go. Those of you that watch the channel on a regular basis know I'm a big fan of throw and go kayaks. And on the Nucanoe lineup, they have one of the best, most underrated kayaks in the market in the Nucanoe Flint, which is kind of their skinny water river fishing kayak. So where does a U10 fit in their lineup? So the U10, in my opinion, is going to be, maybe it's not so much a calm flat water, lake, open water fishing kayak, and not so much a dedicated river fishing kayak. In my opinion, it's something that does both waters very well. Maybe not its strongest suit on either side, and I'll go over that here in a little bit. But let's talk about the paddling of this kayak. So the paddle of the kayak, really I liked. Again, I wouldn't consider the U10 a large open water kayak. And when we went out on the water with this, we dealt with some pretty gusty winds. So that's not ideal for any paddle kayak, but it was a good experience. So with the U10, I would definitely suggest having an anchor. They make the anchor plates for these kayaks, and me personally, I enjoy this kayak a lot more once I had the anchor. And again, I'm paddling it, so I don't have a motor on it. I don't have the pivot drive on it or anything like that. So it does float in a remarkably shallow water. I did not run it with the scupper plugs in, so I was doing the self-bailing weight capacity, which is different from the weight capacity with the scupper plugs in. That's where you get the 500 pound weight capacity, but I never felt like I was overloading the kayak. I had a Black Pack Pro, I had all my fishing gear, me at 270 pounds. Again, I had it loaded down pretty good, and it did remarkably well. This would be a really great kayak to kind of get into some of those marshes and some of those hard to reach areas. You can see here me fishing around some brush piles. The one thing that I did see a lot in this kayak with its shorter stature and lighter weight is it does drift higher in the water column, and that will give you a lot more of a wind catch. So me sitting up high in the seat and high up in the water, it gave me a little bit of that sail reaction there. So it did drift quite a bit. And that was something that I would really knock it for in big open water like your large lakes. The 12.5-foot Unlimited is definitely going to be the go-to, in my opinion, for your large lakes. But smaller lakes and slow-moving rivers and streams, this is a phenomenal option. So turning wise, how does this kayak turn? And the turning was really the strong suit, in my opinion, of this kayak. So this is not going to give you the speed that you get out of the Flint as far as straight line or the tracking of the Flint. But what you get out of this kayak is you get something that you can turn really quickly, you can spin it around really easily, and it gives you a wider base and a wider, wider capacity too. If you're needing to bring a lot of gear, think about maybe an overnight trip down the river, or just floating around in your favorite fishing cove on a larger lake. This is going to be a great option for that. Talking about stability was, and I'm surprised to say, I was a little surprised by the stability of this kayak. I owned an Unlimited, the 12.5 footer for about a year and a half, and I loved the kayak. The U10 actually was comparable in stability as the 12.5, and I was surprised by that. Me at 6'5" and 270 pounds, I don't have the best sea legs because I just don't stand up on kayaks a whole lot. The seating position is high enough to where I don't feel like you have to, but I was more than comfortable with standing on this kayak. I was even paddle boarding it a little bit with my paddle, and honestly, in a high wind situation, I didn't have any issues with that. So this is something that I think will differentiate the Flint from the U10 on your rivers and creeks. Maybe you want to stand up, maybe you want to fly fish a little bit more. That higher seating position and a 41-inch wide base is going to give you maybe a little bit more of a stand-up casting ability than the Flint will, but the Flint is going to be able to navigate those harder, choppier waters there. So it really depends on what you need your kayak to do. So finally, I'll talk about the tracking. So tracking is just your straight line paddle performance. Obviously, the Nucanoe Flint is probably one of the best tracking alongside the Pursuit on the Nucanoe lineup, but the tracking is probably something that really I would say is not the strong suit of the U10. It's not a fast paddling kayak. It's not particularly well at tracking. Paddle technique, proper technique is going to be your saving grace with a lot of that. But if you're wanting something fast and speedy, you're going to want to look at maybe the Pursuit for a longer kayak, and you want something shorter for skinnier water. The Flint is going to be the go-to still on that. But what you get out of the U10 is you get kind of a nice middle ground between both kinds of water, calm flat water like lakes and ponds, and moving water like your rivers and creeks there. This is going to be a good kayak, not great maybe on both sets of water, but depending on what you're wanting to do on that kayak, I believe that this is really going to be the expectation of this kayak is something that does all kinds of water pretty good. Okay, so who is this kayak meant for? Who benefits the most from the U10? Well, that's really easy. So to me, this is somebody that wants to maybe carry a lot of gear, maybe someone that wants to catfish or really do some overnight trips without, maybe they don't need a big 12.5-foot kayak. Now, I talked about the tracking not being its strongest suit, and honestly, I think that's going to be the reason why a lot of people buy this kayak. This is going to be something that you can spin around really quickly. This is going to be something that you can turn in a tight space, and for a wide, decent length on the kayak, I think that makes it a little unique. It does plane across the water fairly flat. They do sell a pivot drive option for the U10 already, so that may be something that you want to consider. And if you're wanting to motorize the U10, the unlimited motor kit is going to work on the U10. I will say that if you are going to motorize it, you're going to want to invest in the rudder. Trust me on this, because the lack of tracking when you're motorizing it, especially if you're going at a higher speed, you're going to wish you had that foot control steering, but they offer that, and that's what it's meant for. So the design of this kayak, does it do what they intended to do? Absolutely. I love the kayak. I love the $15.99 price point. I've said it several times. I think the U10 being launched spells the end of the Frontier series. Time will tell if that's true or not, but it's very similar to the Frontier 10, but it's a little bit longer and performs a little bit better, in my opinion, with the paddle in the water. So pros and cons. So let's talk about pros first. Honestly, first and foremost is the stability. You get a smaller package. This is very similar to Bonafide's SS series. So the SS127 being the longer version, the SS107 being about that 10.5-foot version. A lot of people love that smaller package for lakes and also a little bit better on rivers than its bigger brother. And that's what you get with the U10. So stability, you get a phenomenal stability. And some people may steer away from the Flint because they feel like it's a little tippy. In my opinion, the Flint has been kind of fixed on that with the lower seat position. But some people like a lot more room. They like that open deck concept. They like the ability to store their gear in front of them, to stand up and cast. And if you're fly fishing, it's a very clean open deck. There's a lot less stuff to get snagged on, and you don't necessarily want to have that 80-something pound kayak 12.5-foot long. The U10 is also going to be a lot easier to car top if you're doing something like that, or if you have an SUV. Maybe you don't have access to a trailer or a truck bed. Again, the U10 gives you that where maybe the 12.5-foot bigger brother of the Unlimited maybe fell short with that. The ability to turn it really quickly. You still get a high seat position, you can still get the 360 Millennium style seat, and you get a base that's wide enough to accommodate that. A lot of people would modify the Flint to have a swivel seat, and then obviously doing that modification would greatly affect the stability of the Flint. With the U10, you get probably what a lot of people wanted out of a river fishing kayak, with the swivel seat option, the ability to stand up, and just the added stability while still being able to turn it and maneuver it in tight spaces. So definitely A+ for the turning of it. Customization, or your utilization of the space provided. So I loved the rod saddles in the side. I used that a lot and I absolutely loved it. Also the catchboard padding. The catchboard padding accommodates both the 26 and the 32. That's very unique because a lot of boat manufacturers that have the catchboard built into the kayak, it only accommodates the 26-incher. The 32s are great for those of you that like to fish for walleyes, like to put a catfish on there if you can, but it gives you the option at least. I'd like to see the 12.5-foot version do the 2 different pad sets for the 2 different sizes of catchboard. So we'll go over the cons, and again, the cons are probably going to be why some people buy the kayak, so keep that in mind. But I say cons because some people may expect this kayak to do something that it wasn't really designed to do. So the first and foremost is going to be your speed and tracking. So the cons on speed and tracking, it's not a speedy paddle. It's not necessarily going to track very well. It tracks okay is about what I would say. But some people are expecting it to track the same way as the longer Unlimited did, and it's not really designed to do that. If you're needing the speed and the tracking, again, the Pursuit or the Flint is going to give you that. A more compact design, but still the same width as a 12.5-footer. You are going to suffer a little bit on your tracking, but the boat does plane across the water really nicely. Again, that does hurt with your wind resistance as well, and that's really my second con is you're going to need an anchor if you are paddling this kayak. I brought an anchor with me, thankfully. I probably would have been pretty miserable had I not. It was unseasonably windy, in this particular body of water. And again, it was fine. As soon as I did the anchor, I'd get to a spot fairly easily, and then I would drop anchor, and you don't have as heavy of a boat, so you don't necessarily have to have as heavy of an anchor. But once I got that dialed in on the kayak, I really enjoyed my time. Having fun on the water is always something that I intend on doing. Obviously, fishing is supposed to be fun, but what I love to do is I love to look at nature, I love to look at wildlife, I love to see the sights and sounds and kind of get lost in that. And that's really why we kayak fish to begin with, in my opinion, or at least for me. But anyways, guys, I hope this video helped you guys out. If you want to check out my review of the Unlimited or just the walkthrough of the Unlimited, you can click up here and we'll have that for you. Again, thank you so much for watching, guys, and we'll see you on the next one.